Hi guys, Olive here. Today I would like to have a kind of three-pronged, slightly meta discussion video slash rant video all about a book that I recently finished that I had some really big issues with. The book that inspired this video and has caused me all this trouble was the first in a YA fantasy series. That book was Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. Before I even start this discussion, I want to say that I enjoy the occasional YA book. I think they're fun. I have no snobbery towards YA. I don't look down on anyone who reads YA. In general, I read books that are more marketed toward adults, but when I'm in the mood for something light, I reach for a YA book, and that is what I did recently. I picked up Three Dark Crowns because the premise sounded fascinating. There are triplet queens, and only one of them can ascend the throne, but the only way that she can do so is by killing off her other two sisters. Even now, after I have experienced what the book actually has to offer, I am so in love with that concept. But the execution was just nonsense. First of all, the book is incredibly slow. Basically nothing happens. One of the few things that does end up happening is incredibly stereotypical of YA fantasy, and that is just some random love triangle. There are a bunch of random subplots that all seem to do the exact same thing, which is my least favorite thing in fiction, is when the author presents something to you like, oh, this might be a problem. Oh no, wait, it's not actually a problem. Sitting on the edge of drama that ends up leading nowhere doesn't fly with me. But my biggest issue with this book, and the reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place, is that this book is the first book in a trilogy, but it should have been a standalone novel. I believe that the author of this book, the author of this trilogy of books, could have done a much better job if she was telling this entire story in one novel. My feelings toward Three Dark Crowns, which I was obviously very, very frustrated with, leads me to a greater point about my issues with book series, why I typically don't read them, and my frustrations with YA publishing. Firstly, if a story can be told in one book, then it should be told in one book. If a story logically goes in the direction of a series, meaning that there's enough material and the story can be its own thing, it's able to stand up on its own 2 feet, then by all means, make that a book series. But if your book series has only 1 book's worth of material and you split it into 3 books, that's a money move. That is a way to squeeze more money out of a very enthusiastic audience, and I think it's really gross. And listen, I know that a publisher needs to make money, but I don't think it's okay to disrespect your customers. I personally think it is very insulting calling something a cliffhanger when it is just the plot twist of the novel used as the last sentence of the book. Because that's not a cliffhanger. That's manipulation. You are not making the reader want to go and pick up your next book because your story was so good and they can't wait to find out what happens next. That is the equivalent of going dun 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 and not going nah, nah. It is biologically imperative to want to complete that thought. When you have the plot twist as the very last line of your book, the reader is dying to go out and buy your next book because you didn't complete the thought, because you didn't give them a complete story, not because your story was any good. Capitalizing on that is manipulative. And I don't think it's right, and I don't want to support it. While I am expressing this opinion, I am anticipating some of the potential responses, one of them being something I've seen a lot on the internet lately, which is people saying, just let people enjoy things. I am not saying that if you enjoyed Three Dark Crowns that I have a problem with you. If you enjoyed it, I am really happy for you, legitimately. I personally just think it is a really good example of how publishers are handling the publication of YA books. I'm not happy about it. I think YA audiences deserve better. I think you can have a cliffhanger ending that isn't exploitative. I think it is possible to have a financially successful standalone YA book. And I also think that you can have YA fantasy series that are not padded with useless side plots meant solely to up the page count. That is to say that you can have a slow-paced YA fantasy series that isn't slow for the sake of being slow. I know that publishers are continuing to lean on these massively popular YA fantasy series to continue to bring in revenue, but there is a way to do it more honestly, and YA audiences deserve that. And this is where the discussion turns a bit meta, in that I want to discuss my reluctance to want to do this video in the first place. If you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen some of my tweets when I first finished Three Dark Crowns and had a lot of feelings about it. I was tweeting about how I would potentially like to film a discussion video about this topic, but that I felt like I couldn't because people tend to be so touchy about things that they love that other people don't. In general, I tend to shy away from any video that could be considered ragey. I am typically a pretty positive person. I never want to make it seem like I'm trying to attack something or someone. I always give my honest opinion in every single video that I do, but this is the closest I've ever come to doing a negative book review, even though my frustrations are mainly directed at the publishing industry in this video. But mainly my reluctance to do this particular video was not that reason. It was the fact that people get very upset when you don't like something that they do, and let's face it, Booktube has a mainly YA audience. If you are a fellow booktuber, or more generally, just someone who puts your opinions about books out onto the internet, then you have probably experienced what I am talking about. Just in my experience, there have been many occasions in my time on the internet where people have wanted to tell me how wrong I am about an opinion that I have on a book. Just a few days ago, I logged onto Twitter and saw a very clear example of this. My friend Becky over at Beck's Books was on Twitter. She rated Dune by Frank Herbert 2 stars. She wasn't a big fan of it. Almost immediately, she got a response to that tweet of a person telling her that she must not have got it if she only rated it 2 stars. I got Becky's permission to talk about that tweet here on this video because I thought it so clearly illustrated the issue that we all have when we express our opinions here on the internet. I don't quite know why people don't seem to understand that no matter what opinion you have, someone is going to have the opposite opinion. And I talked about this in a video that I did many, many years ago, but I am continuing to see a trend when it comes to people's attachment to the media that they consume. I don't know if this is just a recent trend or if this is something that people have been doing for a very long time, and I've only recently noticed it. But people tend to see their favorite types of media as an extension of themselves. So when anyone has any type of a problem with that form of media, that person takes that criticism and turns it as a criticism on them. Oh, this person doesn't like my favorite thing, they must also not like me. There is really no delicate way of saying this, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. That is a really toxic way of thinking. It's the equivalent of putting blinders on and not wanting to see any flaws in anything that you love. You can love something and still see the problems with it, and it's very important that you keep your eyes open to those flaws. And also, other people are allowed to feel exactly what they want to feel about something that you love. Just because you love it does not mean other people are not allowed to have an opinion on it. For example, my favorite book in the entire world is Rules of Civility by Amor Towles, but you could call it absolute trash, and I would honestly be interested to hear why you think so. That book is not me. If you dislike it, I don't assume you dislike me. You're welcome to if you want to, though. I have noticed over the years that it is harder as your channel grows to express opinions on more hot button issues. I mean, it really just boils down to the numbers, unfortunately. The more eyes that are on you, the higher of a probability that someone is going to see your video and have a problem with it. And as your channel grows, this can lead to a reluctance to want to actually voice the things that you think and feel about the books that you're reading. I'm not gonna lie to you, I feel this sometimes. I hate that it exists, but I can't deny that it's there. And for me, it's not an issue of trying to please everyone. I have stopped trying to do that a long time ago. But I do not have time, literally or figuratively, to deal with people being nasty toward me because I don't like something that they do. It is one of my biggest frustrations about being on the internet, and I don't know what to do about it. Oftentimes I hold our community to a higher standard because we are book people, but I see people in our community still falling prey to this. And I think if we, as a book community, are going to do anything about it, then we need to start by talking about it. So this video is my very scattered attempt to try to start this conversation. I, of course, would love to hear from you in the comment section down below, your thoughts on anything that I have discussed in this video. Or if you'd like to chat with me somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media. The links to all of my profiles are linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.